All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Alchemy Podcast. I'm really excited to be with a good friend,
Yes.
Charles Sells. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
It was funny. I was thinking as I was driving over here that not too long ago I saw there's like this meme going around that's like, hey, once you hit like mid 30s, men tend to like change their commit their identity to like a new hobby, So it's like barbecue, golf.
Yeah.
And then I just saw you bought some new marathon shoes.
I did. Yes.
Yeah. So are we jumping on the marathon bandwagon here? Are you a marathon runner now?
So yeah, I am deep in marathon training currently. I've never run a marathon.
Ever?
Never. No.
Yeah.
And I started running like probably 4 months ago, like more competitively. And yeah, I have a good friend, Jordan. He has a running gym actually here in South Jordan. And our kids played soccer together. And so he invited me. We were kind of chatting about stuff. He's like, hey, I've got this running gym. Like, you should come check it out. And this was like earlier this year. And I went, dude, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I'm going to keep kind of going back. And my progress had started to improve. And he was like, hey, man, you should get a race on the books. Like, he's like,
put it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar. He's like, otherwise you're just kind of coming. He's like, which is fine. You can come and run and the workouts they're tough. They're really hard.
Gnarly.
Yeah. And so he was like, we should get a race on the books. And I was like, okay. I was like, no offense to like anybody or like, the marathon world. I was like, but I'm probably not going to do like the Salt Lake Marathon. Like it's just like not really, I don't know. It's just like not cool enough if I'm being like totally honest. It's like, I don't want to do that. Right.
Sure.
And so he's a very accomplished runner. And so we started going through a handful of different, he's like, oh, we could do London, this and that, blah, blah. And Tokyo has always been top of my bucket list for places. Like I've been looking for a reason to go to Tokyo for the last like 5 years. And Rachel and I, my wife, we've talked about it. And anyway, we were sitting there and he was like, oh man, like Tokyo is like an amazing race. And I was like, I would do Tokyo. And so we looked it up that day, and the window for kind of submitting your application for the charity bib for Tokyo opened that day. And I'm like a month into my running journey. And I was like, all right, done. And so I just signed up. Like, and you have to like submit and try to, get accepted or whatever. So I did. And I just submitted and got accepted on a charity bib to Tokyo with like no experience. The furthest I'd ever run at that point was like 7 miles or something. Yeah, man. And then so I just dove straight into now like an aggressive marathon like training schedule. Recently, I just ran my second half marathon and then, set a new like personal best for half marathon by like 10 minutes.
You're cruising.
Yeah, dude. Like I won my age group.
You won your age group?
Yeah.
Come on.
I swear. Yeah. By 7 minutes. The guy who,
Oh, you smoked him.
Yeah. I came in 7th overall in this half marathon. Like, was like really.
You're natural.
Like, cruising. Yeah. But it's been one of those things where I'm like, now.
You're in. You got the bug.
I'm in. And I'm also kind of like, probably like, like one of those like annoying kind of people that's just like running and talking about it.
It's so funny because like, well, first off on the marathon thing, people talk about like the runner's high or whatever. I've never experienced any pleasure running ever.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm a bigger guy and my, I carry, I'm 6'4", big frame. I'm not like, I don't have a runner's body. And like, I'll run, and I'll do like a 5K and I'm like, I'm exhausted. And I got zero pleasure out of that. Yeah. Right. It's awful. Like there's like, I don't know if it's self-limiting belief, but like, what's the appeal to it? What's the hunger, this like all inness? Like what gets you off on it?
So it's interesting because the pleasure doesn't come until you're done. Yeah. Right. Like when I'm in it, it's miserable and I hate it and it sucks. And then as soon as I finish, it's that, that feeling and that sense of accomplishment and knowing that I did something really challenging. But I think the bigger thing, and it was interesting, I was actually thinking about this very specific thing. It's like the correlation, I think, between running and, maybe sobriety and even like, ayahuasca and all of those. I think those 3 different things have a very similar trait in that you go and you need to go to a new, like you need to unlock a new place like in your mind to exist, right? Yep. And the only way that I've experienced to like get to that place is you have to overcome like a certain amount of physical and or emotional pain to then reach this place, like this good place, right? And so for me, typically the first 3 miles it's horrendous, dude. My legs are on fire, my mind's on fire. I can't, all of these things are just like going haywire, and my brain is telling me like, stop, like we shouldn't be doing this. And then, dude, you settle in and you just go to another place. And it's almost like, going to this really deep kind of like daydreamy type place. And I'll kind of come to and be like, oh man, it's been like 2 miles or whatever. And so it's almost like it's like a weird disassociation kind
Flow
of thing.
state.
Yeah, flow state.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to music when I run either.
You're raw dog in the
raw
runs.
dog in the run. Yeah.
Raw dog in the runs.
And my wife, she's just like, dude, what are you doing? But again, that first 3 miles, super brutal. But then after that, dude, I can start to like really like things just filter through and I can find clarity on things. And, I don't have a choice in like what comes into my brain at that point when you're like 4 or 5 miles, 6 miles into a run and you're going to be out there for another like hour and a half just running. Your body will bring up and your mind will bring up kind of like what needs work in a really interesting way.
So I gotta give it more time.
Yeah, you just gotta run.
I just gotta keep going. I gotta get over that 3 mile hump.
Yeah. The 3 mile, 3 miles is probably the worst distance.
Oh, it's awful.
I don't receive like the mental clarity that I'm looking for, but I also don't receive like the physical like accomplishment either. Like 3 miles is a big deal, but if you can get over that hump, I find that like then everything starts to like really happen after that. So you should.
I got to keep going. So I want to get into your sobriety here and ayahuasca. But before I do that, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, and we all experience this, that like our mind is going to tell us we shouldn't do something. Like this is too hard. And in regards to running here. So it's like, it's too hard. Body shouldn't be doing this. Right. And we experience that in business and life and relationships, right? The mind kind of tenses up. How do you combat that self-talk? Like, how do you override? Do you have like a mantra, a phrase that you use to keep you going? Like, so when those negative thoughts come in, how do you?
Yeah, it's probably like for running specifically, I don't know that it's like the healthiest, but it like, I almost like really encourage and force like and increase the amount of negative self-talk for like that first 3 miles of like really challenging myself. Like you can't do this and you're not good enough and like all of that stuff. And then it's really kind of a sick thing. I don't know, but like, start to reinforce like really, I don't know, challenging things. But my life has also been built on overcoming things like that. And so I know deep down that by continuing to create energy and like continuing to move forward on something that is really, really challenging, I've experienced the good that lies beyond that. And so yeah, like it usually starts with, especially on like a really, really hard run where I'm like, yeah, of course you can't do it. You can't. And then I have to, to like challenge myself to overcome that. And then it all kind of comes together. But like the first little bit, it's like it's a dark spot, And like I went for a really long run the other day and it was like the first like 6 miles. I was just like, yeah, you're not good enough. Like you can't do it. You're not going to do it. And everything anybody's ever said about you is right. And like, you're a loser.
You use that as fuel.
Yeah. But it's like a weird, it's a weird thing. I wouldn't, like my wife would be like, hey, like, how was your run? It's like, oh, it's great. But it's like the first 6 miles, like, oh man, it was like, tremendously.
There's the benefit, the reward of overcoming that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's like in a microcosm, right? I can overcome that in an hour. But like over life, right? Like things, you don't typically see the result that quickly. And so this is like a reinforcing kind of that I can do in a small amount of time where it's like, do the hard, just do this thing, get over it, and you will receive that reward. So when I'm in a challenge that, sometimes takes months or, years to overcome, like I, can stick with it. And because I know something is good, I just believe it inherently. Like I know that the good thing will happen if I just keep doing it because my life has shown me that.
It reminds me, I remember I have a health coach. His name's Austin. Shout out AO, Austin O'Neill. And when I was living in LA, I'd work out at the Equinox in Marina Del Rey.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I had like this inspiring thing. I'm like, hey, I want you to throw on runs at the end of all of my lifts. And there was one day he threw on like a 3 mile run post lift. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like 2 miles in and I'm like, the voice won.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm too tired. Can't do this, whatever. So I stopped a mile early and got off and I went into the locker room to go change. And like David Goggins' voice was in my head. He's like, you're a little bitch, And I was like, damn it. And so I like put my shoes back on and went back out onto the treadmill and ran that last mile.
Yeah.
And like the sense of accomplishment was like, oh, this is amazing. I had quit. I went into the locker room. I was about to shower. And then I put my clothes back on, went back out just to finish that thing, just to say I did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was 2 years ago, and I like still think of it as like a rewarding experience. And so like these conversations that we have in our head, it also reminds me of, do you know Jesse Itzler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time motivational speaker.
Yeah.
He has this all time speech. Those that are listening, go YouTube Jesse Itzler after this. But he talks about when he did the 100-mile race.
Yeah.
And he did it with the SEAL. And the SEAL talked about that the mantra he uses is just, I never get tired.
Yeah.
And he's like, Jesse, do you want to know what's crazy about this race, 100-mile race? We never get tired. We never get tired. And then so Jesse tells this really great story. Obviously, he's a phenomenal speaker. That they're like in the last 20 miles. And just in his head, Jesse just repeats, I never get tired. I never get tired. I never get tired. And I started using that too. And it's actually really helpful.
Like, I might use that.
The voice inside your head, just like your relationship with it completely dictates the quality of your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So you're all in on the marathon thing. Reminds me of when people get the golf bug they go all in on golf. And it's like, I was that way a couple years ago. You're a great golfer.
Yeah. I still love golf. But I would say, everything is kind of taking a little bit of a backseat to running.
For the running.
Currently.
Yeah, the running thing. On that too, you're celebrating, I saw on your Instagram, you're celebrating 15 years of sobriety.
15 years of sobriety. Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever think you could have gotten here?
And no.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And so, it was an interesting period of reflection. And for the last little bit, my sobriety date comes around and I spend a little bit of time thinking about it. But this was kind of a bigger one because it's like a 5 year. So, it's really kind of thinking of all of the amazing things that have happened. But no, man, the place that I was at when I got sober and needed to get sober and made that decision versus today, it feels like a fever dream. Looking back, it's like, feels like it just happened. And then it's also like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe any of that is true, that did happen. It's a weird.
It's a different life.
Different life,
world,
man.
different Charles.
Different everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the time that I used drugs and alcohol as compared to my life sober, I've been sober so much longer than I ever used drugs or alcohol. And so it's really interesting that, the vast majority of people that I'm closest to, except for immediate family and a few friends back in Arizona, but the vast majority of people in my life have never experienced that version of me.
Yeah, I don't know that version of you.
Yeah, my kids have no idea,
Yeah.
That I, even ever struggled with anything, right? At all. And so, it was a very emotional day. I wasn't expecting it to be that emotional. And it was, man. I kind of was overtaken and I ran 15 miles that day for 15 years of sobriety. And it was tough. I was like, man, why am I just getting all freaking misty eyed and thinking about all this stuff?
Yeah, what emotions were coming up for you?
I was so proud of myself for how far I've come. And one of the reasons that I got sober is I kept having this reoccurring dream when I was using, and I would wake up in my dream and I'd just be older. I'd just be much older, 50, 60, 70, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember being in this attic in a home that I don't recognize, and I'd be looking out, but I was doing the exact same stuff. I had not changed.
Still using.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I was older, and every, ounce of potential that I had, anything that I wanted to be, all of that had slipped through my fingers. Right.
This is straight up Christmas Carol.
Yeah, dude. It was
Ghost
crazy.
of Christmas Future comes and shows your life if you don't make any changes. Yeah.
Dude,
Charles Dickens.
And I would wake up in a panic, and I'd wake up and be like, oh my gosh, thank God that didn't happen. And for 6 months I continued to use. Right. And I was still, in active addiction or whatever, but I would have this dream, and this dream kept happening, or variations of that dream. And so then, just thinking back to how much has, occurred and happened over the last 15 years. And, I still think that I have way more that I want to do. There's so much that I, have the opportunity to do, and just being super grateful and overwhelmed with, the life and the things that I've gotten to experience and how close it was to never happening. And that was oh man,
yeah.
And so that's probably a big driver as well. As oh shit, dude, this.
Yeah, so cool, man. And I feel really blessed and lucky that I've never been around substance abuse addiction. Yeah. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are some common misconceptions about addicts and not being sober?
Yeah, I think that it's tough, right? Because addiction, at least for me, and I still work and do a lot of consulting in the fields of, substance abuse. And, it starts typically pretty innocently, right? Nobody sets out to be like, hey, I'm going to start using and like let it dictate every decision that I make, right? And so then this idea, and I struggled with this, and I still struggle with this, of this idea that like it's a morality thing.
Mm.
And at one point it probably is, right? You make, a wrong decision, right? But everybody makes decisions, and and how that manifests in each person is different. And what happened to me was, it just took on so quickly. And I struggled with opioids, and I was a part of like the opioid epidemic in, the early 2010s, 2008, 2009.
Did it start with like prescription?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I was given a prescription from a doctor.
Yeah.
And was told this is a non-addictive substance, which has, been disproven. And there's
Yeah.
been plenty of documentaries about it, right? And so I was given a prescription. The doctor's like, no, you should take it, like, right? And so, of course, you trust in that. And then all of a sudden it just got, wildly out of control. And then the choice is removed. Like I no longer had a choice. It was like I had to do this thing. I do believe that at a certain point, like the choice becomes lost, and that period of abstinence and breaking that physical dependence is such a challenge. And we haven't, we haven't found the best way to do it, right? Like it's unfortunate because it people have to make that decision, and I had to make that decision for myself. There's nobody that was gonna, do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is, one of the things I've spent kind of a lot of time. I think the world has also changed a lot too, as far as like the types of, substances that we're seeing now, and how that impacts, the varying kind of, mental health concerns that we have that are just prevalent, right? And like mixing that with social media and all of the things to, it's a new beast, right? So like when Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, like when he got sober, like it was just everything was different. It was a different world, you know what I mean? And like abstinence and everything, it's like you could, but nobody was really addressing any mental health. And
Yeah, tell me more about AA, because I have some friends. I dated someone who was sober a couple years ago, and she loves AA.
Yeah.
Like, and I've heard amazing things about AA.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's been your experience with AA?
So I believe in the 12 steps, and I
Yeah.
think that, and they were hugely impactful for me.
For people who don't know, what are the 12 steps?
Oh, 12 steps of Alcoholics
maybe you don't know all of them,
yeah.
but like
and
what's
so,
the concept?
So yeah, so it's the work that you do, within Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's a book that was written that explains, how to remain abstinent from alcohol. And then there are certain steps that you can do, and you work with a sponsor, and that person helps take you through the steps. And basically what you do.
A sponsor's like a mentor.
A sponsor is a mentor, yeah.
Yep.
Somebody who has there's no like specific time of sobriety they need to have to be a sponsor, but you need to have worked the steps with another person.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of the program is that then you take somebody through the steps. And that's how, basically, to keep your sobriety, you need to give it back.
Yep.
And so, the steps, range from, kind of creating a relationship with a higher power, all the way to making amends and taking personal inventory of the things that you've done wrong, and then going and making amends where possible, and then passing this on and building and maintaining a spiritual connection, because that's important, right? So all of the fundamentals there. For, I would say, the first 10 years, the first 10 years of my sobriety, I was very, kind of devout, 12-step I would go to meetings.
And meetings are weekly, right?
Meetings are
they're everywhere.
all the time. You can find there's a meeting right now, for sure. And so, in early sobriety, it's always suggested that you go to more meetings, so that way you can start to build your fellowship, and you can spend time with people who are sober, and kind of start breaking those bad habits. And as you progress, you typically find a home group, which is a place that you are accountable to on a weekly basis. You typically take a service position. Maybe that is you're brewing the coffee for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's stacking chairs. Maybe you're the chairperson for the meeting, and you will pick the topic for that day. And so there's a lot of different
what are some of the topics they talk
opportunities. It could be spirituality. Most of what I did, if I was ever like the chairperson for a meeting, is I would choose a passage in the big book, and I would read it, and I would say, give my experience on how this has maybe affected me, and maybe it has to do with resentment. That's typically a big thing, or overcoming that, or how to make an amends, or when to take accountability, or maybe it's the spiritual side of things, and it could be anything. A lot of times I just open the book, and then you'd be like, here we go.
Here's a passage.
Here's the thing.
It seems like church.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting in that way. There are a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then traditionally, you open the meeting up, and people can come and share, and you share for about 5 minutes, and, can offer some perspective on whatever that topic may be.
Yeah. And what was your introduction into it? Did you go willingly, or was it kind of like
Well, I went to treatment. And
into treatment
so, yeah,
first?
I was in treatment in 2010. I moved to Utah from Arizona to go to treatment.
And what was your intro into treatment? Was that by choice, or was
Yeah,
it like
it was weird, man. So I was homeless, I guess you could say. I was without a home in Arizona. I had a car that I was living in, and then also my sister would allow me to like sleep on her couch at that time. And during one of my like rough periods, I kind of woke up one day and I was like, I'm done, right? And I had some friends who had reached out to me and been like, hey man, like you're not doing well and you need to like clean your life up. And I was like, no, like I'm fine. So finally I wake up one day and I'm like, oh, okay, things are bad. Like
how long were you in denial of that?
about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of just like, it was about a year of people like constantly calling me and being like, dude, like, what are you doing? I dropped out of school, lost my scholarship. I had a scholarship to play soccer, lost that, like lost everything.
Yeah.
Wasn't on speaking terms with really anybody in my family. My one sister, who you know, Rose,
Yeah.
she would still talk to me and she like would let me stay at her house. And then I had my car, but I was in a tough spot. Like I was just bad. And I woke up at her house, reached out to a friend who had been trying to reach me for like 6 or 7 months to be like, hey, like we can freaking like you need help, right? Like I'm gonna help you. And she was the only person who would call me out at that time. Everybody else just
This friend.
Yeah. So anyway, I woke up one day, I reached out to her. She got me in touch with a woman who worked at a treatment center in Arizona. I had no insurance. I had no money. I had nothing. I had negative everything.
Yeah.
I had nothing. I was in like tons of debt to like, it was bad. But I was like, hey, got in touch with this woman. I was like, I'm willing to do whatever you say. Just, I'll do it. I don't care. She was like, okay, let me work on it. And so she and I had talked for a couple of days and she called me back. She was like, hey, I've got good news, and bad news. Like good news is I found you treatment. Good news is it's a scholarship. Bad news is it's in Salt Lake City. And I was like, done. I'll go whenever. And she was like, okay. And it was like a Wednesday. She's like, I'll have a plane ticket for you on Friday.
Come on.
Yeah, I swear. And so I called my family, called my mom and my dad.
How were those conversations?
They were short. I was like, hey, can you guys come to Rose's house on Thursday? And they were like, why? And I was like, just come. And they were like, okay. So I get my whole family there.
So you put together the intervention.
It's like a reverse intervention.
It's a reverse intervention.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I called them and they all show up and they're like, what are we doing here? Everybody's kind of looking around. I was like, hey guys, just like, I'm going to treatment. I leave tomorrow.
And everyone in your family was aware of your abuse. Your substance abuse. Yeah.
I don't think they were like, there wasn't like open communication about like how bad it had gotten.
Yeah.
But like everybody was like, oh, like Charles is not in a good spot. And so, yeah, had this reverse intervention and was like, I'm leaving tomorrow. And they were like, okay. And so dude just packed up my stuff and got on a plane like the next day and came to Utah and landed in Salt Lake City. And then, went to a facility in Murray. And
what do you think inspired that? Because it's like you just woke up one morning and things were different.
Well, yeah. So I'd had that dream.
Yeah.
Right. And my biggest fear, like that dream was like my biggest fear.
Regret.
Dude. Like, yeah, man. And like not living up to my potential and just being a complete and utter failure and like waste of everything.
And is that God to you? Like, is that God inspired? Like, how does that dream reoccur? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. It has to be something like that. And if you had asked me that, 10 years ago, like, no, I was agnostic or atheist, 10 years ago, like, no, that wasn't God. That was just, whatever. That was just me figuring it out. Right. But yeah, it's something, I don't know. And I think that part of like my life and everything is still trying to uncover that. Right. Because I believe that all of that happened for a reason. And it's really overwhelming to think about because if that doesn't happen, it's like,
where are you? Yeah.
Exactly.
Are you alive?
Yeah. I'm like my kids and, I've got 2 daughters and I've got a wife and, I'm like,
amazing
oh my gosh,
family.
would have never met, you know what I mean? Like, so it's weird to think about that. Like, the butterfly effect kind
Crazy.
of thing.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about. I know nothing about treatment. So like, what happens there? How does that all unfold?
Yeah.
What is the daily schedule like? How long are people there?
So treatment. The place that I went to, I was in residential treatment. I was there for 47 days.
Wow. Is that short, long?
That's
normal.
It's like right in the middle.
Yeah.
You can, typically There's treatment centers that are anywhere from 30 to 90 days. And then you have different levels of care that you move through. And so I would say that now what is kind of common practice is to be in some level of like wraparound care for at least 6 months. And that's like, so you do your residential piece and then you're still working, maybe in group 3 days a week after that. And you're in some sort of like sober living environment to really just try to like reintegrate and make sure that things are, that there's accountability there.
Right.
So I was there for 47 days. Didn't know anybody. Just kind of showed up.
How many people are there? How big's the group?
So the treatment center that I was at was 24 beds total.
Yeah.
There was probably 12 people that I was there with, co-ed, varying ages and, all substances. So I was on, so my thing was like opioids, but there were, other people who struggled with that. There was people who were just, alcoholics. There was like a 65-year-old woman who, she was like, oh yeah, I've never even heard of that. Like, and her thing was, so that kind of changes. And then, like the milieu or whatever. And then, there you spend a lot of time, doing, one-on-one therapy and then doing group therapy and really trying to get to, the root cause of what happened, which is challenging to do in such a short amount of time, but really then work on like the life skills piece. So I was 21 in treatment with zero life experience other than like, dropping out of college and struggling with substances. So like my time, especially later in treatment, was going to be spent on what are you going to do? Like when you go home, when you get out of treatment, like how are we going to do that?
And what's the withdrawal process like?
Oh my God.
I hear it's really intense.
So brutal. Yeah. So I was, I was on a pretty high like dosage of opioids and just kind of, taking just a ton of stuff. And at that time, so in 2010, there was a medication that you could use that would help to combat the withdrawal symptoms. Because the withdrawals from opioids for me, it's basically like, dude, every part of your body is misfiring all at the same time.
Oh.
So it's like hot, cold, can't sleep, can't eat, hungry, not hungry, sick, like stomach in knots, cold sweats. And it was
hell.
Oh, dude. And all at the same time, and it doesn't go away. So I, had taken this medication that would suppress those feelings. And it did that by basically filling the neuroreceptors in my brain in the same way that opioids would. So although it wasn't an opioid, it mimicked it in my body. And so for a short period of time, it was like good to take that pain away. But as I left treatment and I had no money and I had no insurance, I had nothing, I couldn't afford that medication. And so I stopped taking that and I had to go through withdrawals all over again.
Wow.
Yeah. And
how long does that last for?
So like the worst of it, like when you just like really down and out, was about 4-5 days.
Of just pure intensity.
Just really bad.
Hell.
Really, really bad. Yeah. And then I don't think that my body fully regulated for a year though.
Wow.
Maybe longer. Like I would get these shivers up my spine.
Yeah.
And like I could function and I was okay. But like, I think I was sweating for like 2 years.
And going back to the voice in our head and how we navigate it, what was the self-talk? What was going on in your head when you're like in the thick of withdrawal?
I don't know. There was just, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just had a stronger desire to get through that pain in that moment than I did to take the easy way out. I don't remember like having a mantra. I don't remember anything. I remember I would take like 5 baths a day because that was the only way that I could like warm my body. But at no point, I was just like, this is just what we have to do. And I don't know why that changed. I don't know what happened, but I just remember being like, this is the last time we're going through this. And like, we're just going to get it over with. And we're just going to go right into the
It reminds me, I think it's, maybe it's Carl Jung, don't quote me on it, but he talks about people change under 2 conditions, either by choice or when it's too painful to stay the same.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're in that second bucket. It was just too painful.
Yeah.
Where the pain of going through withdrawal, doing the change was actually easier than the pain of staying where you're at.
Yeah. And I think too that everything else said like all roads had kind of ended too. So like to continue using was to then enter maybe into a style of using that I wasn't prepared to go to. Like you can always go deeper, but I think like looking and being like, okay, my next step here, is to probably move to like heroin and intravenous like drug use and become like fully homeless and like and I was like,
It's a dark place.
I'm not going there for,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so luckily there was a couple people there that were like, hey, like somehow there's still availability. And like, I still don't know how all those things happened in order to get me on a plane and 72 hours to get me to Utah and all this stuff and all these things. Yeah. And so then I just, at some point just stopped asking like, wow, how did all that come together? And just be like, hey,
I got out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And what was post-integration like? You wrap up rehab. You end up staying in Salt Lake?
Yeah, stayed. So I had no intent. I didn't want to stay here. I hated the winters.
Me too.
Same. And I had huge dreams of moving to Southern California. I was going to go live by the beach. And yeah. And then, I got through that like pretty, treacherous like withdrawal period. And I made a few friends. I started to meet some people. And interestingly, Utah had become a landing spot for a ton of people looking to get sober.
Yeah, I feel like there's like a lot of rehab centers here.
Yeah, there's a lot of
recovery here.
Yeah. And I do think that, Utah kind of spearheaded what, in a lot of ways, like modern treatment of like, there's tons of outdoor stuff. And so anyway, so people were coming from all over the country and landing here. And so I had friends that were, most of my friends, nobody was from Utah. I was like, you had people from Atlanta or from New York or whatever, and were getting sober, right? And so I'd kind of found this group, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't half bad. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm still getting out of here, but we'll stay for now. And I remember I got my first job. I was working at PacSun at Southtown Mall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude, I was killing it. And I had made it to a year sober somehow.
What was that like?
It was a huge accomplishment, man. I was really freaking proud of myself.
Yeah.
And so when I picked up a year sober, I went back to my treatment center and just to say hi. I hadn't spoken to anybody.
Yeah.
They didn't know, I don't think, like where I was at, and I just showed up one day and I was like, hey, like on my sobriety, I was like, hey, I got a year sober. Like I'm coming to say hi. And they're like, hey, can you come in for a minute? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And this really wonderful woman, her name's Dr. Marianne Rosenthal. She was the executive director there. And she pulled me into her office and she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, oh yeah, you're sober. I work at PacSun, like blah, blah, this and that. She's like, do you want to work here? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And so, they offered me a job. I was working twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I would take the clients to yoga. And then I would just hang out. And like, I just stayed at the treatment center. And I ended up progressing and starting my career there. And I worked at that treatment center for almost 9 years.
Wow.
And moved from like a part-time, taking the clients to the gym and yoga. And like when I left, I was the director of strategic partnerships and I had unlocked helped grow them from 24 beds to 150 beds across like 4 levels of care, designed a bunch of buildings, a bunch of different treatment programs, done a bunch of really amazing stuff and had a leadership team that like really believed in me. And, as a young person, they were like, hey, like, and would give me a ton of opportunity and be like, hey, I have this idea. Like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, yeah, like go figure it out. Right. And kind of gave me a lot of confidence from like that perspective. And yeah, over 9 years, I got to do so many amazing things and really, and that's why I stayed, right? Like, I made a few friends or whatever, but then, I started working and then my career just really started to progress. Wow. And I found like a lot of value like in the work. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. But in the back of my mind, I was still, and even today, I'm still just like, well, maybe we'll leave, like
still not sure.
Yeah, we're still going to go.
I think there's something to be said there about the power of having someone in your life who believes in you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's made all the difference for you.
For sure.
Right. You had going back to that friend for 6 months who's trying to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is because she believed in you and wanted the best for you. And then you probably had great mentors when you were in recovery. And then when you're going through the process of working at the recovery center, having people that believed in you, like probably kept you really sturdy.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It was this like interesting thing, but yeah, dude, I did not want to stay here.
Yeah.
And then, even I've tried to leave a few other times and I always come back and I love it.
And then you met Rach.
And then I met Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, your wife, Rachel, is like one of my favorite people on planet Earth.
Yeah. Cause you guys were in college together, right?
Yeah. We went to school together.
Yeah.
She was cheering at the U. We had a nutrition class together. We met in a nutrition class.
Yeah.
And she's just such a homie.
I know.
She's just down and she's cool. And she's so, my favorite thing about Rachel is that she's so considerate and so intentional.
Yeah.
Like she just like, even like when I had my book launch party,
Yeah.
she made me this really cool, cover of my book, had like a little white rabbit, thing on it. Just like, she's just very considerate and very intentional. And, you knocked it out of the park. Rachel's one of the coolest people on planet Earth.
I know, dude.
Yeah.
Super freaking lucky.
Yeah.
And it's.
Didn't you guys meet on a dating app?
We did. Well, yeah, we did. We met, initially on Tinder. We went back and we kind of traced it. I'd messaged her on Tinder. She never messaged me back. And then I'd messaged her and we matched on Bumble, but she never messaged me back. But she
for
did.
2.
Yeah. But she did have her Instagram handle in her Bumble. And she had like a little thing that just said, meme me so I know it's real.
Yeah.
And then I sent her a meme, and it was when Game of Thrones was at like its peak.
Yeah.
And it was a Game of Thrones meme. And I was like, if you don't watch the show, like, you're not going to get this.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, I don't watch the show. And I was like, oh, okay. Brutal. And then, so we kind of like messaged a little bit and nothing, whatever. And then I think like Instagram stories had just come out, and she posted a story that she was going to miss her flight. Like, she was like, oh my gosh, like, pray for me. I'm going to miss my flight. And I was like, oh my, I got to say something. Like, this is my chance or whatever. And so I was like, hope you don't miss your flight. So dumb, just anything, just like anything to start a conversation.
Just throw in anything, whatever sticks.
Dude. Yeah. And so she ended up sending me a picture back, like showing that she had made it to her seat. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, like we're in. And I happened to be doing a spa day, like with a buddy at the Grand America that day. And I was just about to get a massage. And so I like took a picture and was like, oh yeah. And she was like, what the hell are you guys doing? And I was like, oh yeah, just like spa day, Grand America. And she was trapped on a plane for the next like 3 hours flying back from, back east. And so we just messaged.
Had her locked in.
Exactly. She had nowhere to go. And then, we kind of, ended up talking pretty consistently over the next couple of weeks. I was going to Nashville for like a week. She had a thing, and we had one night that we could hang out. And luckily she had a friend. We were all in a group chat together, and her friend was like, dude, just go. So I was like, please come over. Just come and hang out. I promise, like, I'll make you dinner, whatever. Like, I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah.
We had no mutual friends because I'm not from here.
Right.
I was not in the social scene at all. Convinced her to come over. We played Mario Kart all night until like 7 a.m. and
All nighter.
All night, dude.
Yeah.
And just talked. And I had to catch a flight to Nashville, and that was it, dude. Like she pretty much just moved in after that. And we've been together since that was in 2016, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So almost 10 years.
Wow. What's the secret to 10 years?
Oh man. The thing that we've been really successful at, because like I have changed a ton, like she's changed a ton. And the thing that she's probably taught me the most is like she holds a ton of space for me to be like my most authentic self. And my most authentic self sometimes is challenging, like right now, like my most authentic self is like Marathon Charles.
Yeah.
That's like
all in.
Yeah. And I do that over and over and over again, which can be exhausting. I know that. And she allows me space to do that. And I think, but the biggest thing is like the consideration for one another and truly being a partner. And I think that, part of it is that we have different ways that we recharge. So the way that she recharges is socially, and the way that I recharge is alone. So when we need to recharge, she can go and kind of be social, and I can be home and like
be with the girls.
Yeah. And it creates that, it's very like, we both are kind of committed to that, thing, and it feels very equal,
Yeah. And I love that you say that too, because I can tell from my perspective, and I really admire your guys' relationship.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you guys are on the same team.
Yeah.
Like you guys have each other's back.
For sure.
Like I know of relationships, people on network, where I feel like they're not quite on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little competitive, and it's like, there's like some weird energy sometimes in those relationships, and people like that. But like when you and Rachel, like you can tell you guys are ride or die.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I just
and
can't.
It's so cool.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, and she, she's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And even through, challenging times and, whatever, like, I think the commitment to just like supporting your person, like that's that's kind of, I think we come at it from like that perspective, which is like amazing. And and it's beautiful, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit, because I want to transition to the ayahuasca space.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know that was a big deal for you.
Yeah.
Big deal for me. I never freaking wrote a book on it.
Yeah.
But what was your introduction into the psychedelic space, and how was that experience?
So this will probably bring some challenge, because people are like, wait, didn't you just say you were sober?
Yeah.
And all of that,
Sure.
right? And so I welcome the challenge of kind of that perspective. But I do identify as sober. I also, have, experienced and used plant medicine. My introduction was that I was about 10 years sober, like traditionally sober in AA.
Mhm.
And my sister had gotten sober. She had moved to Utah. She had gotten sober and she was miserable. And she had done everything that like AA kind of requires, right? She had a sponsor, she was working the steps, all of the things that you're supposed to do. And she just like was in a bad way, right? And she started and had used mushrooms. And I remember she used psilocybin
Mhm.
and came to my house and she was a different person. And I had been working in treatment for like, 6 or 7 years at that time. And, I've seen varying kind of degrees of mental health. And like my sister was one of the most depressed people I have ever met, like clinically depressed, right?
Yeah.
Like can't get out of bed. She would sleep for like, 18 hours a day. Like, and she took mushrooms and she was kind of better. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. And so I spent like the next
What did you
year.
notice different about her? When you say she's a different person, what do you mean?
Oh my, she could show up. She could have a
Yeah.
conversation. She laughed. She smiled. She wasn't in bed. She returned a text. She answered her phone. Like she ate. She went in the sun. Like just standard, her just over, standard of living came up like immense, like to a point where I was like, wow, what happened? And the one thing that was different was she was like, yeah, I started taking mushrooms. And I was like, huh. I was like, that's interesting. So I spent the next like year really looking at that and
Mm.
like the difference that it can make from a mental health perspective. Like, and that's where, things get a little kind of can be challenging, right? Is like you have this substance that is deemed as a mind altering substance. And
Yeah.
so by the traditional rules of AA, you shouldn't use it. Okay. However, my sister was going to kill herself.
Yeah.
Right. So is it better that she used mushrooms or should she have remained abstinent and potentially,
Yeah.
right? And so like then so I'm battling this question. And ultimately I was like, no, it's better that, she did this thing. And, you can even go back in AA and Bill Wilson, the guy who founded AA, struggled with debilitating depression and used LSD,
Used LC.
and like that's a part of the story that we're just like, we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that also kind of then I was like, well, there's more to this, right? And so I saw the effect that it had on her. And at that time in my life, I was also looking again, I was at kind of like this crossroads where I was like looking for, I'm like, man, there's more to this. Like there's more to life. Right. And so I had an experience where in a very like therapeutic like setting, I took psilocybin and I had a conversation with my wife because she was like, whoa, man,
Yeah,
like
it's a scary conversation
well,
with
and she's like,
someone
"You're a
who's sober.
sober guy."
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? And so, anyway, so it happened, and I just remember I had that feeling of like, I need to uncover this. I need to know what's on the other side of this. And I remember feeling more connected to my wife and to myself and my kids, and having all of these, and had a wonderful experience of like really kind of going through all this stuff. And I woke up the next day, and I had this fear that I was going to wake up the next day filled with regret and like I was the worst person in the
Yeah.
world. And I felt the opposite. And I was like, oh, wow, I feel more connected to God than I've ever felt. And so that kind of led down this road of, working with kind of some other therapeutic like practitioners in the plant medicine space, being very intentional about it, like not trying to hide the fact that I have a history of substance, all of that and like being upfront, but continuing to dive deeper into like what this is. Ultimately, because of Rachel, she had found this place to do ayahuasca, and she had been really called to do it, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was like,
Ayahuasca's a different beast,
oh,
man.
dude,
It's
and
a
there's no way to
different
like
beast. Can't
you
explain it.
can't explain it, right?
Yep.
And I remember we went to Costa Rica, and the first night, dude, I dropped in or whatever, and I met God, and God was my mom, and my mom had passed away.
Mm.
And I got to see, and my mom struggled with substance. She's an alcoholic and, had a very challenging life. But I got to see my whole life from her perspective.
Wow.
And dude, I'm bawling my eyes. I'm crying, dude. And I remember I had always been not ashamed, but like I felt like I needed to show up in a very certain way because I didn't want people to know that I'd ever struggled with substances because I was embarrassed of that, which, is
A
something.
lot of shame there.
Yeah, tons of
Yeah.
shame. My mom, is an alcoholic. I was ashamed of that. Like all of these things that I was ashamed of. So I had to present myself in this certain way to the world to try to hide all that shit, And I remember basically like my mom as God showing me like, hey, this is why everything happened the way that it needed to happen. And it uncovered, all of these things. And I was like, oh my God, man, like I can't believe that
How'd that change your perspective? Like what changed because of that?
it gave me a ton of empathy for where my mom came from and then really understanding that the challenges that she faced, right? And to really see like the sacrifices that your parents make for you and doing the best that they can with what they have, like she had a certain toolbox and I do believe today that she used it to the best of her abilities. And sometimes that created challenges, and it also gave me a wonderful kind of platform and idea of like how I want to show up for my kids and like what's the most kind of important thing in like that perspective, the biggest thing that gave me is softened my heart because I was angry and I didn't even realize how angry I was, but I held on to all this stuff, man. And like, I was still angry, with my mom, and I ended up, purging that night, all the resentment that I ever had towards my mom.
Oh,
I know, it was crazy.
that's
And
so intense.
yeah,
It's like so beautiful, so intense,
mhm.
so heavy, so gnarly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember after that night, my relationship with my mom now is the best it's ever been. Like, and I made a commitment and a promise to her that my kids would know who she is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to, not share her story, and she will participate and be a part of like our life. And I remember, yeah, like I went to Rachel after the night, and I was like, oh my God, like I just met God. And she was like, what? She was like, that was not my experience.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So anyway, the next like, kind of year and a half or 2 years or what, I think it was about 2 years, spent, using that, using ayahuasca specifically and not really any other plant medicine to like uncover all of, the depths of like my psyche. And again, had some like really, really powerful experiences. And one that I had, most recently in January, like for my birthday, and I, died and I was never going to come back. I was never going to see my kids again. And like all this crazy stuff happened, and it helped me reframe and reprioritize my life again.
Yeah.
In the same way that when I got sober, I had that dream of like, hey man, you're check yourself. And so I had to check myself again. And that was,
And I've had that experience too in ayahuasca, and it's probably the most intense, awful experience of my life,
mhm.
where you literally think you're dead,
Yeah.
like you're dying. And
Yeah.
so it's called the ego death, right? Where you're literally like, you're in this place where it's really weird and it's just, it's unexplainable.
Mhm.
And you're so pulled into it.
Mhm.
And you have to make this decision in there of
Yeah.
like, am I going to go for this or am I going to not? And if you don't, it gets more messy, but you have to like almost have to commit to the ego death.
You have to commit to the death.
You have to commit to the death. And if you don't, you're going to get punished.
Mhm.
Right. But once you commit to the ego death, it
Yeah.
allows you to get out of your perspective and just see what's always there.
Yeah.
Right. You just get to see your life and God and planet Earth in such a different perspective.
Yeah.
And you're never the same after that moment.
No.
Yeah.
And now it's a touch point and a reference point for when I'm like in my, kind of just if I'm in a, in a bad spot and I'm being maybe just really selfish with my thinking and all that stuff. I just, all of a sudden I'll remember like, hey man, remember what happened? Like, remember you can lose all. Remember how you were begging to just have dinner with your kids? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. And just, I'm like, yeah, we are just not going to participate in that because this is what's important. And so it's a really important touch point in my life now. And now, I think I spent a long time, doing that. And now my intention, at least, since January, is to live. The whole goal with plant medicine for me anyway was to uncover a way of living and a way of being that, where I feel good and, but to be able to replicate that without plant medicine. Like that was always the goal was, you feel this way and you have all this love and empathy and all this stuff. How do we just do that?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah. And I really admire that path because that's very similar to mine. 2017, 20 to 2020, 2021, I was using a lot of plant medicine. I was doing a ceremony like once every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Just a lot of ayahuasca. I think I've done, 13 sessions, which is a lot for some people, but I know people have done more, but I haven't done ayahuasca. I've done it once in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And the whole goal of it is to just remove the blockages, remove the heaviness, remove the trash, give you perspective, show you what really matters, family, friends, health, your human experience. And just for me, just so much more gratitude and appreciation for my life has come from it. And I think to your point, it's like the purpose of these medicines is to help you live a higher, happier, healthier life without it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some people get stuck in that and just always going back to the well. So I really want to just admire and acknowledge your courage, because a lot of people get stuck there.
Yeah.
And that, there's a kind of trend going on, but they talk about awakening from your awakening, right?
Yeah.
You have this awakening
Yeah.
and you're so pulled into it, and you have the visions and you have the cosmic oneness and oh my gosh, holy moly, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then you got to come back to reality.
Mhm.
Like you got to come back and live your life and do the dishes and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so it's cool to see you kind of re-emerging back into that space.
Yeah. And I do think that like that's also part of, maybe why I've enjoyed running, is because there are aspects of that I can still, go back to, but it's not so destabilizing, because, ayahuasca can be very destabilizing. But
Yeah.
if I go for a 2-hour run, I'm like stabilized.
Yeah.
So, so
embodied.
Exactly. So selfishly there's that, but it's been an interesting kind of progression through that. And then as I've kind of redefined, like in the process of redefining like who I am and where I stand and kind of my thoughts on stuff. It's
Yeah. And how would you define your relationship with plant medicine today?
I think it's very important. I am currently, like I said, looking at living
Yeah.
and making sure that, I'm doing that without the influence of something else. I can't say that I'll never do it again.
Yeah, same.
It's a huge part of my life, but I do think that, and I think that it's wildly beneficial too, right? But I am also, I think the last time I used ayahuasca was in January, and I don't currently have a plan to use it in the near future. But that, who knows? That could change. I'm happy with kind of, bringing in and all of, but it's still wildly impactful, and I use those reference points.
Yeah, same. Was actually looking at my notes from my first ayahuasca ceremony in 2017. Almost 8 years ago, and there's still insights in there that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so insightful. And so I'm very similar tune. I can't say that I'll never do ayahuasca ever again, and I have no intention.
Yeah,
it's not calling me right now.
I'm not being called right now.
Not being called to it.
I'm not being called to any plant medicine
and
currently.
If I were never called to it again the rest of my life, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think the plant medicine conversation is important to have. It is getting more and more popular, and people get stuck in it. And, I think there are a lot of dangers to it. Like, it's not like, I think there are downsides to it.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people, it can really knock you off your center. It can really dysregulate your system. It can really throw a wrench in things, and it takes time to stabilize.
It does. Yeah.
And so I just want to put a note out there too, that this, tread lightly, be cautious,
Yeah.
And in my experience, I think the hardest moments of my human experience as Doug have been in the medicine space.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like so intense.
Yeah.
So hard. It's like, and then you break through and you have the reward.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been moments in ayahuasca for me where I'm like, if this gets 1% more weird, I'm going to lose my shit. Like I am 1% away from absolute psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you kind of go to that place, and it's it's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think, and I think that there is also a place for plant medicine in the realm of, kind of combating and working in tandem with like long-term, substance abuse. Like
totally.
And marrying those two things together. I'm excited. There's been some talk of that, and like the industry, I think, is coming around a little bit to it. And, the thing that I hope doesn't happen is that, the pharmaceutical companies get their hands on, some sort of compound and kind of ruin it. But I think there's a place in the world for that as well.
I mean, I have a friend who is, the only reason he's still alive today is because of ibogaine. Similar story, really fully addicted to opioids, lost his marriage and his house and everything, and he was going to die.
Yeah.
Went and did an ibogaine ceremony and overseas, and totally turned his whole life around. It's just saved his life. So there's definitely with those with substance abuse issues. And I actually have another friend who is an acquaintance, I would say, who is fully addicted to methamphetamine, and through their work with ayahuasca, like saved their life. So having this, it seems like it's a very beneficial tool for those in addiction.
Yeah, 1,000%. I would be and a huge proponent of that, and of people doing that in as controlled a way as you can. But like I think it's a huge opportunity to make a big impact in that world, and one that I would hope to be a part of, actually.
Yeah.
So, continuing that.
Amazing. Well, I'm curious for you now, Charles. You've come a long way. You've made some big changes. Your full dad life now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to touch on one thing. I remember in your last ceremony, you had an insight to be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
right? Share more about how that insight came through and
Yeah.
like how that's kind of influenced your behavior moving forward.
Yeah. So yeah, in my last, a ton of stuff happened
Yeah.
in, my last ayahuasca session. But to boil it down to its simplest takeaway was, yeah, to be helpful. Where can I and how can I be helpful? And to lead with that intention with the things that I do and the relationships that I have. And it can, you know, when it first came to me, and I was trying to express that, it can come across as arrogant
Totally.
because I'm not like, I don't want to sit here and claim to be like, hey, I can help you. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like that. And so I've had to, I think, maybe just sit with that. And it's more of like an energetic in how I show up for people.
It feels like an energy of service.
Exactly.
Yeah. How can I be of service?
Yeah, as opposed
Yeah.
to be like, hey, like I'm going to help you. And,
Yeah.
and verbalizing that.
Yeah.
That is where I try to operate from, is how can I be helpful? And sometimes, in certain situations, like the most helpful I can be is to not be there. Right. Like,
Yeah.
so, being able to be honest with that as well. But I think, again, another touch point and reference point just for me to look back on. And as I'm moving through something, am I kind of embodying the spirit of what I'm supposed to be here on earth to do? And I think that, as more kind of reveals itself to me and becomes, I see more of the picture, the reason that, maybe all that stuff came together way back in 2010 was so that I could be helpful, to somebody in a situation and live through these things to, kind of help. And it's still, more is being uncovered, but that is the place that I am most constantly trying to operate from.
Yeah.
As a place of being
It
helpful.
really reminds you. So I'm deep in a Ram Dass rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
I love Ram Dass.
Yeah.
Right. I listened to his podcast, and I'm listening to his new book right now, from some of his old lectures. And he had a very influential guru in his life named Maharaji
Okay.
in India, and really profound stuff. Like you go to deep dive in the Ram Dass Maharaji stuff. It's incredible. And Maharaji, before Ram Dass went back to America after being in India for a while, he's like, hey, there's only 3 things you need to do the rest of your life, Ram Dass. There's only 3 things. Love everyone.
Yeah.
Serve everyone. And remember God.
There you go.
And that's it. That's like that's your instructions for the rest of your life. Just love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. So when you say, how can I be helpful? To me, it really encapsulates that second piece of just like, all I can do is just serve you, right? You can serve your wife, you can serve your kids, you can serve your community, serve yourself, right? Serve others. And just like, if you navigate life from that place of open heart, service-oriented connection to God, like you can't lose.
Yeah.
You can't lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just like getting back to the basics, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like the world's in a place, right?
Yeah. It's happening.
Yeah. Right. And I think that, at least for myself, this desire to have connection, is a that's the thing that I find, I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that. And I always feel better, when I have that. And yeah. And so
Yeah.
trying to participate more in life in that way and just get back to, just simplifying. And those are pretty good rules to live by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really inspired by it, Charles. I'm curious, what's getting you excited? What's next for you?
So just launched an app in the golf space because I'm still obsessed with golf.
Yep.
And so, this I met this really, wonderful kid. He's not a kid, but he had worked for me in a different capacity. And I remember I was interviewing for a role, and it was a financial analyst role. And so he was and his resume was not supportive of somebody who would be a great fit for this role. But I was like, well, we'll take it. There was one kind of interesting thing that was on his resume because he had just gotten out of college, and it was that he was working on this large language model, and he was doing a bunch of stuff. Anyway, met this kid and immediately knew that he probably wasn't a good fit for the role we were hiring for, but I was like, this kid's I like this kid.
Yeah.
And so we hired him and worked with him in a bunch of different capacities for, like a year or whatever. And he ended up moving on and wanted to do his own thing and kind of whatever. We stayed in touch, and he and I had kind of talked about, he's like, hey man, like I don't play golf, but if I built out this like AI based, swing coach, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, for sure. And he's one of those people that I'm like, whatever you do, man, just tell me what you're doing.
Yeah.
And like,
You're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Like, and it might not be this thing, and it might not be the first 20 things, but you're going to do something.
You're going to hit something.
Yeah. Cause you're just like one of those people. And, so anyway, he spent the next, kind of 6 months or whatever, kind of coding this thing up. And yeah, we just launched the MVP. So basically this, this golf swing coach app that we are looking to, partner with coaches. So we don't want to claim, and we don't want to try to replace the golf coach. I don't think we should do that. And I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, I think a coach is a beautiful thing.
I love my golf coach.
You know what I mean? Like, and so, obviously with like, AI and all the stuff that's going on in the world, it's like, oh, this can replace it. It's like, no, we don't want that. But as a tool, we think it can be a very effective tool. So we're doing that, which we just launched, and we're signing up high schools and universities, which has been really, really awesome. Yeah. So I'm stoked on that. Running, obviously, I'm stoked on. Like, I'm currently, my goal is to do the Tokyo Marathon in sub-3. So yeah, sub 3 hours. Yeah.
Moving.
Currently training at like a 2:40 pace.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we can get that across the line and go experience that. And I'm doing, still consulting and doing work in the behavioral health and like addiction space, which is a space that I'm just really passionate about. And, my life is here because of, like the work that was, that folks did before me there. So, giving back in that space and being able to, hopefully move the needle there. And then just, man, all the most random stuff, man. I'm just trying to do as much and see as much and talk to as many people as I can, and create as many connections as I can, and be as present as possible, and, be with my kids, and, experience what it's like to, have a 7 and a 6-year-old currently. Right. And, the day will eventually come where I'm not the coolest person in the world, but today
you are.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And like, that's the thing that I think about when I'm like, really being selfish about my thoughts. I'm like, oh man, like go spend some time with my kids and like touch grass. And so like, just seeing them experience the world and being able to experience the world with them is like freaking awesome. It's really, really awesome. And, yeah, man, just kind of trying to figure it out and bring it all together, and it all comes together in ways that I could never really freaking imagine. But those are the things that I'm really like stoked on right now, and continuing to, just push myself as like a human being, I guess, and, really see like, what can I freaking get out of this, this.
Holy shit, we're alive.
Yeah, exactly, man. And some days that's a lot easier to do, and some days it's, it's tough, but yeah, like,
you're doing great, man. So well, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Dude,
your story is so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see what unfolds for you, and go get that sub-3 on that
I know,
Tokyo
dude.
race.
Yeah, we're gonna go do that. We're just gonna go do that.
Yeah.
And then who knows? I'll probably become obsessed with some other weird like niche thing, and like Rachel will be like, "Oh my god, like,
here we go again.
Here we go, a new
That's
thing."
what makes life fun.
Yeah. So, but thanks for having me, dude. This was awesome.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Love you, brother.
Yeah, I love you too. Thank you.